What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik, aka Unique Mazik. I'm the hardest working man in sports and gaming. I'm coming to you with a little bit of a Madden 21 expectation, right? So for those of you who don't know, there was a fixed Madden franchise initiative that went out, got EA's attention. They decided essentially to respond, which was really cool, and essentially make a commitment as to how they were going to improve franchise mode, not only in Madden 21, which, you know, this whole thing kind of took place really close to the end of the development cycle. So much that they can do for this particular version of the game. And that's mostly what we're going to talk about in this video, but also a long-term commitment spanning all the way out to Madden 22 and beyond. So what I want to do in this video is kind of look at what they said in their gridiron notes that spoke specifically to franchise mode and what we can expect in this upcoming version. So one of the things is people have to understand that this whole commitment from EA, though you can easily argue that this should have been in place long before now, but as it stands, this commitment that was made to franchise mode happened pretty much after Madden 21 was already developed. So they were already close to a full go when this whole thing hit. So they're kind of in some ways backpedaling and trying to go back in and add things in that you could easily argue should have been there to begin with. But in any case, here's where we are. So there's 4 areas that I think you should have realistic expectations for improvements that you can see in Madden 21. And the first one I think is a pretty important one. It's superstar X factor and abilities. So based on the information given in the update, now mind you, this is not confirmed, but they did say specifically, and I quote, introduce the ability to customize X factor and superstar abilities on all players, allowing you to customize your roster as you see fit, close quote. So for me, what that means is the restriction that used to be on you when you were creating a roster or editing rosters or editing players in Madden 20, you couldn't essentially add an X factor, add a specific X factor, or add a specific superstar ability to a player. It was kind of like this luck of the draw kind of a thing. So if you create a certain type of player, they like assign a certain kind of superstar or X factor to them. And there was some rhyme or reason to it, but you didn't have a specific or direct effect to be able to say, I want this guy to have Truz. I want this guy to have, you know, Fearmonger or whatever. You couldn't just do it that way. So if I'm reading and interpreting this correctly, this year in Madden 21, you will have the ability to do that. I think that is a realistic expectation. If that's what your expectation is and it is not met, I think you have good reason to be upset with EA if that does not come through. So the next area that I think you have every reason to have a realistic expectation about is in CPU controlled personnel decisions. So for years, Madden CPU controlled teams have done some really weird stuff. Like you might see the Miami Dolphins draft a quarterback 4 years in a row in the first round. You might see some sort of weird trade or weird free agency signing that doesn't appear to address a need. And to a degree, sports kind of work that way. I mean, I don't think anybody ever is going to forget that the Minnesota Timberwolves once drafted like a point guard 4 years straight. So stupid stuff kind of happens with teams because they're run by human beings. But at some point with Madden and their overall personnel decisions with CPU controlled teams is a little weird. So they did commit to saying that would get better in this year's game. They would address that now. They call that particular area AI personnel management. And this is the AI will make better team management decisions in the draft, free agency, and trade. So clearly that's a realistic expectation to have for this year's game. The next section I'm going to talk about is postseason games and the Super Bowl. Now, they were really, really gray in what they talked about here. All they literally wrote was improved and refreshed. So what I'm hoping improved and refreshed means is that you'll have the ability to choose your Super Bowl location every year. That would be really cool in a franchise mode. If I want to be out of my mind and have the Super Bowl in Cleveland, even though they're not in it, we can do that. If I want to be crazy and have the team with the best record who actually is in the Super Bowl, have them be the host, maybe that. I mean, I think just overall having that ability to customize those different things would be great. Also, some increased presentational value for postseason games. They have some now. You see some different overlays and stuff, and Brandon Gowden and Charles Davis do make some references to being in postseason games, which is really cool. But I do think there's more that can be done there. If you look at games like FIFA, late in a season in FIFA, if you're playing like EPL or and I think probably in La Liga too, you'll see like cutaways to other games, other matches that are taking place, especially if it's relevant to where you are in the standings. And I think something like that in postseason, even in late season games in Madden, would be fantastic. So they're already doing it in FIFA, so you have to believe it's somewhat on the radar in EA's development team or development groups, even though those games are developed in two different studios. Still, the two series have been known to borrow off of the other. So hopefully that's the type of thing that they mean when they say improved and refreshed. The next segment is in stat tracking. One stat just jumps out at me as for the last, I don't know how many years, I can't understand why Madden doesn't get this right, but sacks are not tabulated correctly. There's been times where I'm like, I know my guy's leading the league in sacks, and you look at the sack numbers and it's not registering properly. And it's like, for me, that's like an immersion breaker. And the worst thing that you can have in a franchise mode is an immersion breaker. And that completely is that. You cannot mess with the stat tracking in a franchise mode. You have to be able to trust and believe in the stats. If you can't trust and believe in the stats, you're killing a very vital part of the franchise mode. And I think that is a legacy issue that we've seen with Madden that we hope that gets corrected. So those are my 4 areas where I think it's realistic to look for a recognizable and noticeable improvement in Madden 21 franchise mode. Everything else, a lot of the other stuff that sounded really cool and just them being like some high level stuff, sounds like things that could happen maybe in a post-release update for Madden 21 and then certainly in Madden 22. But as far as at launch, these 4 areas are things that I'm looking at and saying, this is what I expect to see from Madden 21 at launch. We don't need to go into how they should have had this for years and months and all that. We all know that, but it really doesn't help anybody to keep retreading over that. We got to go from where we are right now, and where we are right now is there is at least some hope that Madden franchise will improve. Now, if it doesn't, I'll be at the front of the line the same way I was with Fix Madden Franchise hashtag. But for right now, let's see what actually takes place in this launch date update, as well as anything that happens post-release. That is all that I have for you guys today. As always, I appreciate you watching. God bless. Don't forget to subscribe and absolutely like this video if you dug it. Peace.